Hi guys, and welcome back to the channel. Today's review is of Nefyn Golf Club in northwest Wales. Nefyn Golf Club is 3 sets of 9 holes, and the championship course is made of the front and the new course, which totals up to a par 71. There is also the additional old course that is also known as the Point, and this is a par 33. For the championship course, this plays a little over 6,300 yards off the yellow tees, and the Point, or the old course, is a little over 2,400 yards off the yellow tees. You can mix and match with these holes. We were really fortunate that we got to play all 27 on the day, so we are going to review all of the 27 holes that make up Nefyn Golf Club. So on to the review then. As normal, we're going to base this on 5 sort of categories. We're going to do the general field and facilities, the course layout, the course condition, course difficulty, and also the value. The general field and facilities, I've given this a score of 4 out of 5. As you pull up to the car park, you are blessed with nothing but sea views. It really is a stunning place as soon as you get to the car park. The clubhouse is really good, there's a generous sized pro shop, and to be honest, the only reason why I've given this a 4 and not a 5 was just because of the practice facilities. There's a small putting area, there's a sort of bit of a chipping area towards the back, and there's a very drab looking driving range which it looks like it's never been used. This is actually a real shame, because if it wasn't for the driving range, I would 100% given this a 5 out of 5. For the course layout, the championship course is absolutely stunning, especially those first 5 holes. They completely take advantage of all of that coastline and the sea, and it's like I've never played anything before. There's a really good mix of different holes, lots of different angles, lots of different shots required to play this hole really well. And also with the addition of the old course, playing out to a peninsula again is a really special thing to go and play if you get the opportunity to. So I am going to give this a score of 5 out of 5 as well. For the condition, I've also given this a score of 5. The championship course was absolutely faultless. Everything about this course was just in incredible condition. The old course, the condition wasn't as good, but still a very high standard of golf club. And onto the difficulty, I've also given this a 5 out of 5 as well. It was tough in places, it really was. There was a lot of shots that you need to play, a lot of different angles, a lot of different elevation changes, but it was a nice difficult. It wasn't too hard, and I was expecting it to be a little bit more difficult in places, but the fairways were pretty tight, but it was quite forgiving. If you play the course sensibly and you don't try and sort of overpower it, you will be rewarded for playing really sort of sensible golf and plotting your way around the course. And finally, onto the value. I'm going to give this a score of 5 out of 5 as well. We paid £70 for the round, and this did include the price of the old course as well. Obviously, as I mentioned earlier, this is subject to availability, but even if you just play 18 holes here, it is well worth £70. It's such a truly amazing golf course, I really can't emphasise, and the video certainly will not do it justice. If you are in northwest Wales or on that east coast, you really have to come and play Nefyn Golf Club. It really is something special. So that gives a score for Nefyn of 24 out of 25, and like I said earlier, if it wasn't for the sort of poor warm-up facilities, I would have given this 25, and this is by far the closest I've come to giving 25 out of 25 across all of my reviews. If you've made it this far, please like and comment on the video. Also, subscribe to the channel. There'll be lots more golf courses coming up in the future, and we've got some really great ones planned. So let's get into each of the 27 holes. We'll be starting with the championship course and finishing off with the Point. Hole 1, and a long par 4 here. Off the tee, the main aim here is just to get down as far as possible. You will see an aiming post in the middle of the fairway, and that comes at about 240 yards, so if you can get past that, you will find yourself down quite a bit of a hill, and that will really add to the shot off the tee. The hole turns a little bit right after this, so what I'd recommend is either, if you can't get past or down the hill, just lay up to a sensible yardage, and it will leave you a long shot into the green though. But it does play slightly downhill, so it will play at least one club different for the yardage that you're playing. Whilst this fairway is quite narrow, there is quite a bit of room either side, so you do have a bit of room for error if you do miss one. just be mindful of the gauze that is down the left hand side. It is quite thick and you probably will lose your ball down that side. For the approach to the green, you have quite a generous sized green here. There is a bunker short right of this green, so what I'd recommend is playing the yardage just to the middle of the green, just to give yourself that sort of biggest room for error. There are a couple of undulations to this green, but probably not going to trouble if anything. The green is quite flat most angles around this green, but just be mindful of the runoff areas that surround most of the way around this green. Hole 2, and a great risk and reward hole here. Off the tee you have two choices. You can play it safe and aim down the left hand side of the fairway. You will see 3 bunkers in the distance, so aiming to keep it left of that left hand bunker. This will be roughly about 180 yards off the yellow tees. For the longer hitters, you can take on the bay, really cut that corner off, so you want to try and get to the right hand side of the right bunker. You'll need at least 240 yards to carry the bay, so it is for the longer hitters. For the approach to the green, you will likely have an uphill shot. Your miss actually here is the left hand side of the green. There are 2 bunkers short left, and it will be quite a daunting shot as you will be facing the ocean. So I would just play it safe, just play the yardage to the middle of the green, and this will give you the most room for error. The green slopes slightly down towards the front of this green, and it can get a bit slippy the further you get down towards the front. Hole 3, and similar to the last hole where the tee is slightly elevated from the fairway. The option here is that you can either take on the fairway bunker or not. The fairway bunker will probably come at about 220-230 yards, so for the longer hitters you probably will want to try and get past this fairway bunker if possible. However, if you are going to have to lay up short, it will leave you with a long uphill shot into the green. This hole really does require quite an accurate tee shot. There is thick gauze all down the left hand side, and obviously down the right there is the big bit of water that you'll see. So for the approach shots to the green, I would recommend playing the yardage to the back of the green, as this will factor in the elevation change from the fairway. There is a bunker long left and 2 at short right of this green, so you will have to play an accurate shot to get yourself into a good position here. Your miss here is actually long, so if you do want to take an extra club, then feel free to, as there is a bit of space out to the back there. It will leave a tough up and down, but it is manageable from there. The green itself slopes from left to right as you approach the green, so you will notice a bit of movement across most angles of this green. Hole 4 is a relatively short par 5. It does play slightly downhill, so it will take a little bit of yardage off. You have again 2 options here. You can take on the fairway bunker that is sitting at about 190 yards. Trying to find the widest part of the fairway here will come at about 180 yards, and as I mentioned, we'll be playing slightly downhill from here. If you do decide to take on the bunker, this green is actually reachable in 2, especially for the longer hitters, but this will require a really accurate tee shot to find the fairway. There is a bit of space out left and a bit of rough which is playable out of, so if you are going to miss, that is your place to miss left. Do not miss right, as again you're going to find quite a bit of water. If you do decide to lay up, again just lay up short of the next fairway bunker. This should only leave you about 140 yards into the green. If you are going to take on this green though, I would recommend just playing the yardage to the front of the green, as this shot will play slightly downhill and hopefully clear the bunkers that are sitting at the front of this green. The miss to this green is actually left or long of this green. You do have a bit of room around the outside. Going right really isn't a miss on this hole. The green itself slopes away from you, so will slope down towards the back of the green. So just be mindful if you are playing into the green for 2. Hole 5, and a fairly short par 3 here. Off the tee though, you will notice that it does play considerably uphill. So what I would recommend is playing yardage to the back of the green. This will hopefully ensure that you miss the 3 bunkers that are protecting the front of this green. And believe me, you won't want to go in them because they are really, really tough to get out of. Missing long and left is actually the safe play here, so if anything, take even more club than you need to. just to get yourself to the back of the green, as there is that bit more space. The green is actually generally quite flat, but it does have a slight slope down towards the front of the green towards those bunkers, but I really wouldn't expect too much movement across this green. Hole 6, and a long par 4 here, and the main aim off the tee is to try and get past the 2 fairway bunkers. These will roughly come at about 200 yards. However, after these 2 bunkers, the fairway narrows and also turns a little bit to the right. You will need to be mindful of the rough down the right hand side here. Anything down that right hand side past 220 yards will likely find the rough and result in losing your ball here. For the approach to the green, this green will sit a little bit higher than where you are from the fairway. There are 2 bunkers either side of this green, and there's a mound all the way down the left hand side of the green. So I would take aim at the middle of the green and play the yardage to the middle as well. You will also need to avoid going too far right, as again there's all that thick gorse down that right hand side there. Being short probably isn't going to be too damaging, as this is stroke index 2 and most golfers will have at least 1 shot here, so you can use this to your advantage. The green, however, there's a few undulations to this green and also slopes down towards the front of the green. Again, the bunkers are going to be the main source of any problems here. Being left isn't the end of the world either, but you will leave you with a tricky up and down from the left to the back green. Hole 7, and another tee shot that requires a bit of risk and reward here. You do have the option to lay up short of the sort of trench that is cutting across the fairway, or you can take on this trench. Now, it sort of sits at about 220 yards off the tee, and it does play from an elevated tee, so you will have a little bit shorter yardage to cover the distance. If you do lay up short, you're going to leave yourself with a fairly long uphill shot into the green. If you are going to take it on, just be mindful that the fairway does narrow down, and also there is really thick gorse down that right hand side of the fairway. For the approach to the green, I would recommend playing the yardage to the back of the green, as I mentioned earlier, just to allow for that elevation change, and also this should help to clear the bunkers that are protecting either side of the front of this green. These look pretty nasty, and again probably wouldn't want to be in there, as this will leave a tough up and down. The green has 2 tiers, with the left hand side of this green being the higher of the 2, so do expect some movement across the putts, and if you are having to put up or down the tiers, again you are going to have to factor in that in the putts. Hole 8, and only a short par 4 here. For the longer hitters, this is actually reachable off the tee, as it only plays 320 yards and it does play downhill quite significantly. For the shorter hitters though, all I would do is try and give yourself your favourite yardage into the green. So just play the club that is going to allow you to play that yardage in. The difficulty here is that the green is heavily protected by bunkers, especially down the front left of this green. The miss here is actually long and right, so if anything, play the yardage to the middle of this green, as this should allow for the elevation change and also aim to miss all of the bunkers that are protecting the front of this green. The green itself is like an upturned down saucer, with most angles aiming to filter the ball back into one of the bunkers. Do expect some movement around this green, and as I mentioned, you will have to negotiate a little bit of an uphill putt from most angles. Hole 9, and a challenging par 3 here. The green is a lot higher than what you'll play from the tee box, so I would take at least 1 more club or play the yardage to the back of the green just to allow for that elevation change. 3 bunkers protect either side of this green, so 2 down the right and 1 down the left. If you're going to miss anywhere, I'd probably miss up the left hand side of this green, as there is a bank and this will help the ball help get back into the green. If you are at the bank, this will be a tricky shot back down. And if you do miss right of this green, this also slopes down and will only exaggerate that miss. The green itself has a false front, so just be mindful of anything that's missed short, and also it does slope from left to right as you approach the green. So do expect some movement across this green, and pace control on this green is absolutely essential. Hole 10, and from the tee you do have to play up the hill. and it will also be completely blind after about 170 yards. The fairway is pretty narrow, but the rough either side will leave you with a pretty good lie. So if anything, just aim at the aiming post and you won't go too far wrong. You will need to be mindful of the 18th hole that does cut across the fairway, and also the 10th hole that is to the right of the green. So anything too far right, you will likely find that fairway down there. For the approach shot to the green, I would either play the yardage to the front or to the middle of the green. There's actually quite a bit of space around this green, and it is quite a wide green as well. So if you do miss, you do have a fairly decent chance of getting up and down here. There is one small bunker sitting at the front right of this green, but it would be super unfortunate if you did end up in there. The green slopes down from back to front, so you won't find too much movement across this green, but again it could get a little bit slippy down towards the front. Hole 11 and a mid-length par 3. Off the tee, you will notice that you have two bunkers sitting on the left hand side of this green. So I would recommend just playing the yardage to the middle of the green. Your miss to this green is actually to the right hand side, so if anything, aim a little bit down the right hand side and this will allow you an opportunity to get up and down. There is almost a sort of old bunker that has been filled in, just protecting the front right of this green, so it might leave you with a tricky up and down if it is short and right. Also, anything too long, you will find the gauze at the back of the green, and this will be really tricky to play out of. If not, you will lose your ball. The green is pretty flat, so I wouldn't expect too much movement from most angles of this green. Hole 12, and another great risk and reward hole here. You have a tough choice of whether you want to take on the fairway bunker that's sitting on the left hand side. If you want to just give yourself the widest part of the fairway, you'll need to play about 180 to 190 yard shot. If you are going to go and try and get past it, you will need at least 220 to 230 yards to clear the bunker. Laying up though will only leave you with 120 to 130 yards into this green, so probably a wedge for most people. Out of bounds all down the left hand side and all the way down the right there is thick gorse. For the approach shot to the green, I would play the yardage just to the front of the green, as this will allow for anything that is either too long, and anything too long will likely find the grass that is sitting at the back of the green. There are two bunkers, one at front right and one at long left, but you do have a bit of space out to the right hand side of this green. The green is fairly flat with a slight slope down towards the front of this green if anything, but don't expect too much movement around most parts of this green. Hole 13, and another challenging par 4 here. Just as the last hole, you have the option to play it safe and to leave yourself short of the fairway bunkers. This will require hitting a shot no more than 200 yards off the tee, but this will bring in the bushes down the right hand side. So if anything, you will want to aim down the left hand side. There is a clump of bushes in the distance, that's your line. For the longer hitters, you can take on the first fairway bunker, aiming to leave this short just of the second one, so you will need to cover at least 230 yards, and this will find the widest part of the fairway. It is quite a narrow landing zone, but you do have a bit of room for error either side of the fairway. For the approach to the green, you have an uphill shot to the green. The green has banks all the way around it, which will help if anything is slightly mishit. The green is long and narrow, so it will require an accurate tee shot, but you do have a bit of room for error if you do over or underhit it. The green itself has a spine running across the middle of the green, so you will notice that you will have an either uphill or downhill putt depending on where you are at the green. Do expect a bit of movement, and again, pace control is going to be really essential here for getting down into. Hole 14, and off the tee, the advantage here is just to get down the fairway as far as possible. You do have the option to lay up short of the gorse that is down the left hand side, and this will need about a 200 yard shot. If you are going to aim to get a little bit further down, you will need to be aware that the hole does turn a little bit down towards the left. There is plenty of space out to the right hand side of this rough, but the rough does slope away from you, so for the right handed golfer, the ball will be below your feet. For the approach to the green, you will need to be mindful of the 3 bunkers that are sat at the front of this green. This green isn't particularly big as well, so it will require quite an accurate shot from a yardage perspective as well. There's quite a lot of gorse around the outside of this green, so if anything, your miss here is actually short of this green. The green itself though, there are quite a few undulations to this green, so do expect quite a bit of movement from most angles around here. Hole 15, and certainly no surprise why this is stroke index 1. This is one of the toughest tee shots that you'll have on the course. The safe option here is aiming for the bunker that is sitting at the right hand side of the fairway and aiming to play no more than about 180 yards off the tee. If you are one of the longer hitters or you're feeling a little bit risky, you can take on the corner here, but all down the left hand side is out of bounds and you will not be getting that ball back. The fairway that you're aiming for is quite narrow and you do have very little room for error, so this is going to require a very accurate tee shot. If you do decide to take the layup option, I would recommend laying up short of the bunker that is sitting at the front of the green. This should only leave you about 60 yards into the green and you will have an opportunity to use your short game to try and get up and down for par. As it is stroke index 1, most golfers will have at least one shot here, so I really would use this to your advantage. Anything down the left hand side will be out of bounds, but your actual miss here is right of the green. There's actually quite a bit of space out here, so this is going to be a really sensible option rather than risking going left. The green itself has a gentle slope from left to right as you approach the green. There is also a few undulations here, so do expect quite a bit of movement around this green. Hole 16, and a par 4 that doglegs to the right. Off the tee you have 2 options here. The sensible option would just be to play down the middle of the fairway, no more than about 200 yards, and this will leave yourself short of the 3 bunkers that are down the right hand side. This will also leave you short of the bushes that are down the left hand side. If you are a longer hitter, you can opt to take on the corner, but this will need at least a 260 yard with very little room for error here. If you do opt for the layup, you will only be left with about 140 yards to the middle of the green. The issue here is that you are going to have to clear the 3 bunkers that are protecting the entrance of the green, all of which are pretty difficult to get out of. For the approach shot, I would recommend playing the yardage to the middle of the green, as this is almost like a peanut shaped green and you will be needing an accurate shot here. There is little room for error to this green, and the green slopes down towards the front of the green. You probably won't find too much movement around most angles of this green. Hole 17, and a tough tee shot here. This fairway is really narrow and there is very little room for error here. There's thick gorse and bushes all the way down either side of the fairway for the tee shot. So I would recommend just playing your favourite club that you're going to give yourself the best chance of finding this fairway. If you can play slightly longer than 220 yards, you will find a bit of a gap in the bushes. The hole does turn slightly left after this, so if you are going to favour one side, I favour the right hand side, just so it does open up the fairway for the rest of the hole. For your next shot, I would just aim to leave yourself about 140 to 120 yards into the green. The rough opens up down the right hand side, so do favour that right hand side if anything. For the shot to the green, I would just be mindful of the bunkers that are sitting at the front of this green, so I would recommend just playing the yardage to the middle of the green, and this will give you the best room for error. Once you do get to the green though, the green generally slopes from right to left as you approach it, so do expect quite a bit of movement around this green. And finally, hole 18. As I mentioned earlier, you will be playing across the 10th fairway as well. So aiming towards the aiming post in the distance, which will be on the left hand side as you see it, back towards the clubhouse, and you will have the opportunity to get as far down this fairway as possible. I would recommend aiming to play at least 210 yards, as this will find the widest part of the fairway. The rough either side of this hole is pretty forgiving, and it will leave you with a good lie, so a good opportunity to get yourself into the green. I would recommend just playing the yardage to the front of the green, as it is slightly downhill and it will also allow for any rollout on the green as well. It is quite a generous size green, and it does have quite a bit of room either side, so if anything mishit, it will leave you with a good opportunity for up and down here. The green slopes also away from you, and if anything down towards that back left. There is a spine running across the middle of this green, which will make it for quite a challenging putt if you're having to put across there. So do expect some movement, and also pace control is going to be essential here for getting down in two. Hole 1, and off the tee, this will need to be a really accurate shot. You are faced with quite a narrow fairway. There's out of bounds and the ocean all the way down the right, and there's thick rough and the path that leads down the left. The tee is quite elevated from the fairway, so you will need to take at least one more club for the yardage. I would recommend playing your 170, 180 yard club just to find the widest part of the fairway. This will leave you only about 120 to 130 yards into the green. The second shot though is completely blind. You have no real reference point as to actually where the ball's gone once you've hit it. You will see that there's sort of 3 concrete posts sort of at the top of the hill. I would recommend aiming for the middle one. If anything, to the left hand one is going to be the best line to take for trying to get yourself onto the green. You will need to take at least one more club, maybe even 2 clubs, just to factor in that elevation change. Being short of this green is probably better than being long. Anything offline, left or right, is probably going to result in losing your ball just because you have no real reference point as to where it's gone. The green isn't particularly big, but it is quite flat, so you won't find too much movement across this green. It is just getting to the green that's going to be the problem. Hole 2, and a short par 3 that does play down into the valley. Off the tee though, it's going to be really important for you to have really good yardage control here. There are 3 bunkers protecting the front of this green, and there's thick gorse all the way down the back. There is very little margin for error off the tee shot. I would play the yardage to the front of the green. This will hopefully allow you to miss the bunkers that are sitting at the front. These are going to be really tough to get up and down from, as there is quite a bit of a difference from the bunkers to the green. The green slopes back down towards the front. Very few sort of small undulations to the green. There will be some movement, but not particularly a massive amount for most of the way around this green. Hole 3, and a slightly longer par 3 here. You do play completely over a valley, and this is a really tricky shot off the tee. The green is quite long and narrow, and your miss here is actually anything to the right hand side of this green. However, don't go too long, as you will find the thick gorse that is sitting at the back of the green. Just to make things even harder, there is a pot bunker sat right at the front on the right hand side. Anything too far left and you will just find the bag, so that ball will be lost. The green has 2 tiers, with the back portion of the green being the higher of the 2, and the green generally does slope down towards the front of that green, so it really is a tricky green to hit. Hole 4, and a really good risk and reward hole here. A really long par 4 that does dog leg to the left, and just depends on how much you're willing to cut the corner off. The safe play here is just to avoid the bay and just give yourself about 200 yards, aiming straight towards the corner, and that should hopefully get you round there fairly safely. For the longer hitters, you can take on the bay. You will just have to be mindful that anything left will be lost. There's acres of space out to the right, so really just aim down the middle of the fairway and just try and play a cut if you are going to play anything. You will likely need about 230 yards to carry the bay. More realistically going to be about 250 yards just to play it safe. For the approach shot to the green, you have about 10 yards to try and make it through the gap. Out to the left hand side, you will notice there is a bit of a mound, and you are going to have to try and get over that, or at least round it, to get yourself onto the green. The safe play here would actually be just to leave yourself short of that gap and then just try and get up and down from there. You will likely have a shot on this hole, so probably isn't the end of the world if you do make bogey overall. The green itself has a spine running through the middle of the green, so don't expect too much movement around this green. However, pace control again is going to be really important to give yourself the best chance of 2-putt. Hole 5, and after a bit of a climb up towards the tower, This really is the show hole of the old course. The views from here are absolutely stunning. You will see the green in the distance, and I would recommend just taking aim at the flagpole that you'll see in the distance. Going for the pin here only increases the difficulty of this hole. Your miss here is either short or right of this green. Anything left or long will likely result in a lost ball. I would recommend playing the yardage to the front of the green. This will allow for the elevation change, or just play one club or maybe even two clubs less than what you would normally play for that yardage. The green itself has plenty of movement around most sides of this green. It does slope generally towards the left hand side of this green as you approach it, so do expect some movement from most angles around this green. Hole 6, and a long par 4 again. The difficulty here is that you have no reference point and you cannot see where the fairway is or where the pin is. I would recommend just using the top of the path as your line. You want to play about a 200-yard club at least, just to make it up to the top of the hill, but what I would do is just play your longest club, aiming for the top of the path, and just give it as much as you can. You have absolutely acres of space towards the right hand side. Anything over to the left, you are just risking that ball going out of bounds. For the approach to the green, you will likely have an uphill shot into that green. The green sits in a bit of a dip and almost has banks around most of the way around this green, so you won't be able to see the bottom of the flag from the fairway. So I would recommend playing one extra club, or just play the yardage to the back of the green, just to allow for that elevation change. The safe miss here is actually to the right hand side of this green. Anything to the left will just bring in the path, and the thick gorse that is all the way down that left hand side there. Anything short of this green is also going to leave you a much better chance of getting up and down. The green is a little bit shaped like an upturned down saucer. Don't expect too much movement around this green, but it will likely leave you with an uphill putt from most angles the way around. Hole 7, and another really tough par 3 here. The main obstacle is just to get past the sinkhole that's sitting right in front of you off the tee. The green has two bunkers protecting the front of this green. You have a bit more space out to the left hand side of this green, so if you are going to miss anywhere, that's probably your miss. The green has runoff areas pretty much most of the way around this green. Also, there is plenty of undulations to this green, so do expect quite a bit of movement around the putts around this green. Hole 8, and not the longest par 5 that you'll ever play, however it is super tricky. Off the tee though, you're going to want to play just about 180 to 190 yards. This will help you find that first bit of fairway. Anything past this and the fairway just completely narrows down, and there's the road down the left hand side, and also there's the bay down the right, so it will make a very tough shot past about 220 yards. For the second shot, you're just going to again try and get past that little bit of clearing. This fairway is going to open up at about 120 yards into the green, so wherever you are left off, just play minus 120 yards into the green. I would just recommend just playing the same shot that you played off the tee, but just be mindful that the fairway slopes from the left hand side down towards the right. So aim just a little bit more down that left hand side. For your approach to the green though, you're going to want to leave yourself, as I mentioned, about 100 yards into the green. The green sits to the right hand side of the building that you'll see in the distance. So I would recommend just playing the yardage to the middle of the green. You do have a bit of room for error around this green. It does have a slight false front to it, but again the green is quite big and is shaped a bit like an upturned down saucer. So don't expect too much movement, but you will have to get fairly close from that first putt to give yourself the best chance of getting down into. And finally for the old course, hole 9. For the longer hitters, this is probably reachable in one. However, this is a very high tariff shot. At only 230 to 250 yards off the tee, you will need to take at least one more club just to allow for the elevation change, as the green sits just that bit higher than the tee box. Just be aware that the green is very small, with 2 bunkers either side of this green. But off the tee though, I would just recommend playing the club that is going to give you your favourite yardage into the green. It is quite a narrow fairway. You do have a bit of a bank, so that will help you if you do happen to slice it for the right-handed golfer. And anything missed down that left-hand side just brings the path and that bit of thick grass, which will likely result in a lost ball. Your approach to the green will need to be quite an accurate one. As I mentioned, the 2 bunkers that are down the left-hand and the right-hand side of this green. If anything, your miss here is actually short of the green, so just play the yardage to the middle of the green, just to give yourself the best chance of finding the short stuff. The green generally slopes from left to right as you approach the green, so if you are in that left-hand bunker, it will be quite a tough shot. Do expect a little bit of movement, however it's probably not going to trouble you too much from most angles around this green.